Hey everyone, welcome to This Week in Hospitality 265. We are in week 8 and we are going to be going over chapter 9. So, before we get to some information on the text, I just wanted to go over with you things that are due this week. We do have a discussion board for the week. It is the What Would You Do scenario in chapter 9. It is found on page 184 and it involves a lawsuit that involves three parties in the hotel industry. Um, it's Fairview Maton Hotels is the quote unquote fictional hotel in the scenario, but I did add a few different obligations for you when replying and giving your response for this what would you do scenario. Um, Again, I said there, answer the three questions at the end of the scenario. Each question should be answered with a minimum of 3 sentences, not including retyping the sentence. So again, if you just retype the sentence or copy and paste the question, that does not count. Okay, so a minimum of 3 sentences. I also want you to use a minimum of 3 legalese definitions in your response, preferably one per answer. So you're going to be providing 3 answers. So a different um, definition that's found in this chapter in each question, but it's not required. But it is required to use a minimum of 3, but you do not have to use them in separate questions. And then please number those answers accordingly, as I tell you each week, 1, 2, 3, just as they are in the book. And then I did state there that we are now 8 weeks into the semester that is past our halfway point. So failure to follow these directions listed in this, this discussion board post above is based on, you're graded based on that response. So each question is worth, being that there's 3 questions, each question is worth 3.33 points. If you were to answer all 3 questions and not follow directions or something like that, then you can subtract 33.33 points for each missed question. As always, I will give you individualized feedback to make you think, or that's the goal anyway. Hopefully you are paying attention to that feedback and kind of thinking about it accordingly, and maybe it changes your mind, maybe it reinforces your stance, but nonetheless, we just want to make sure you're thinking about it from both sides, because again, there's always 2 sides to every story, but especially in legal situations, there's always a plaintiff and a defendant. So that's what you're going to do for your discussion board this week. You also have an assignment due this week, assignment number 3. It tells you there, answer the following questions based on your understanding of the textbook. Email or course message responses are due. That won't be required for this one because it's an assignment, so I need to remove that because you will submit it directly through this link, so that will be removed. But we're going to define duty of care and standard of care in our own words. Okay, so when we start out chapter 9, page 171 and 172, we dive right into duty of care and standard of care, and these are very, very, very important to us. So you're going to define those in your own words. There's no set, length of your response, but you need to be able to define both of those in your own words. Do not copy and paste the definition, or it will not be counted correct. Secondly, you're going to state the difference between the two. What is the difference between duty of care and standard of care? In your own words. Okay? What is the difference? Then, based on the duties of care listed in Chapter 9, and there are listed on page 171 and 172, provide one duty of care example of a restaurant or hotel and how one part of the STEM process that we talked about in Chapter 1, so calling back to Chapter 1, page 5, can prevent lawsuits related to the duty of care. It's a little wordy, so take your time to read it, but I gave you an example there that I put together, and of course you can't use this example. Please use your own, but I said they're based on duty of care number 4. A hotel must employ or contract a technician to provide preventive maintenance work on the fire protection equipment in the hotel. Okay, so what we know right there is that I must employ or contract a technician to provide preventive maintenance on the fire protection equipment. The duty of care I have is to hire qualified employees, and that's duty number 4, to protect the business, staff, and guests from potential liabilities. Based on the STEM process, I can select a qualified employee to perform the job. So again, there's 4 different parts to the STEM process, obviously STEM, and then there are multiple duties of care listed on pages 71, or 171 and 172. If you have any questions, because this is different than our typical analyze the situation, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me as you go through and articulate your responses. If we go to course content for the week, we're going to go down to chapter 9. As always, you have your legalese flashcards available. Chapter 9 Kahoot is there, your quiz, and then if you see here for your attendance grade this week, no attendance question this week, because we have that assignment number 3, you will just submit that. So as you've noticed in weeks past, I haven't given you an attendance question the same week we had an assignment. So that's there for you. There's a couple of examples here. Find law for reasonable care. Take your time to go through that if you'd like. Then there's always the example of a day in the life of a hospitality manager. So all that's there for you. That's what we've got going on this week in Chapter 9. So if you find yourself looking at your grade book and you see that what you should be, I suggest you check your grade book daily, not just for this class, but for other class. But if you find yourself with questions regarding your grades and your current status in the class, please let me know as soon as possible, because again, we are over halfway. If you find yourself looking at possible ways to improve your status in the class or your grade, your overall grade, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, to the point to where I said last week I hoped everybody was using the resources available, but not all resources are for everyone. With this video, I do take the time to try to give you as much information as possible for the week, and I truly think that this, if you spend the 12 to 15 minutes just to listen to it in its entirety, you will get a lot of information from it. As much so as last week we talked about in the video coming by my office and discussing the attendance question in person to receive 5 points towards your lowest completed grade. I'm going to extend that this week. If you will come by and just say hello, if I've already met you, just say hello. If I have not, please introduce yourself. And for that, you will get 5 extra points to your lowest completed grade. If you have not done the grade, or done an assignment, it's not completed, you cannot get credit for it. If you have all 100s, and you're making a 100 in the class, I cannot give you 5 points there. This is for your lowest completed grade where you have availability for those 5 points. If you would like to come by and discuss that in more detail, again, please do that. So looking at Chapter 9, your responsibilities as a hospitality operator. And again, I think a lot of times when we think about hospitality, a lot of people just migrate to hotels. But it's not just hotels. It could be a plethora of things within the hospitality industry. It's our restaurants, food trucks, obviously hotels, Airbnb, VRBO type situations that we're renting out homes or rooms or however you look at it. It could be event centers, just a single event space. So a lot of types of things like that fall into there. So many different things that we can do here. But again, some of the most important parts here of those responsibilities happens in 9.1 and 9.2, and that's our duty and obligations of a hospitality operator. That is our duty of care and our theories of liability. So many things can go into the legal side of us in the hospitality industry, and there are a lot of great examples there. So read through this and kind of understand. This chapter is heavy on more legal terms. Now again, we have these legalese terms in pretty much every chapter, but these are more legal sounding, for lack of a better term. So negligence per se, punitive damages, contingency fee, comparative negligence, contributory negligence, gross negligence, intentional act, those kinds of things. So I do encourage you to check on your Quizlet and do a flashcard um, uh, review of those so you can be familiar with the terms in the chapter. One thing I did want to point to on page 180 was legally managing at work, the manager's role in litigation. So again, we talked about, I believe, maybe 2 weeks ago, how we needed to take a response or a complaint or any kind of legal filing, legal letter in the mail, something like that. We need to take it very seriously and follow the steps we feel like is most appropriate to handle the situation. And if we can't, then that's when we get involved with legal counsel. So if you look at page 180 in the box there at the top, legally managing at work, the manager's role in litigation, I would suggest you read through that and get some ideas. In the beginning of the class, we all talked about where do we see ourselves in the next few years. A lot of us said owning our own business or managing or something like that. If you turn to page 182 and figure 9.2, the incident report, this is a very, very, very important tool for you to have. And if you've worked in the food and beverage industry, you've most likely seen an incident report like this before. And then obviously the hotel industry does this as well. I can speak from experience owning a brewery and providing the beverage side of the food and beverage industry. We have utilized the incident report quite frequently to try to help cover ourselves. Now, we've never been taken to court, but again, as much information as we can have to ready ourselves and have available based on a situation for an incident report or something like that, it really helps our cause. So again, not just it's not just having the incident report, it's knowing how to interpret it and making sure that your staff know how to complete it and complete it in its entirety. And then that finishes up the chapter. So again, you'll end with your discussion board question on the what would you do. But there's a lot of good information in here. It is a short chapter, but the analyze the situation questions are pretty good. But again, it's our duty of care and our standard of care that kind of set us apart and help minimize the opportunity for potential lawsuits against us. So take a look at that. Again, the legalese definitions from the Quizlet are going to be very helpful to this, as some of these terms we've heard before, but maybe don't understand or use so frequently. So it's kind of new to us. So that'll always help you out. If you have any questions, I can't state this enough to please let me know. In an online course, we know that sometimes communication can be difficult. So again, I thank everybody for filling out last week's attendance question where you let me know what was working best for you. I got some really good information from that and realized that what we're doing is, the processes that we've put in place are not broken, but they can always be optimized. So I do appreciate you taking the time to do that. For those of you that came by to see me, I appreciate it. Got to meet a few new people. That was great. So again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Y'all have a great week.